A vine can look like the picture of health and still be failing. Full leaves, good color, climbing a little further across the bed every week, and still it will not hold a flower long enough to become anything. Or whatever fruit does set stalls at the size of a golf ball and drops before it goes any further. That is the most dangerous kind of trouble a garden can have, because none of it looks like trouble. The vine keeps drawing its water, keeps holding its ground, and gives your family nothing back for any of it. Tend it the way you would tend a starving plant. More water, more feeding, more time spent worrying over the leaves, and the real trouble underneath only spreads while your attention stays on the part that was never actually the problem. Left alone through the rest of the season, that vine can hand you an empty porch step in October and nothing more. So what do? Dig up the whole bed and start again, or spend more money on a bottle that has already failed you once? Neither, as it happens, because that vine is not finished, and what is wrong with it has nothing to do with anything sold on a shelf. My name is Elias. I am Amish. I have kept melons and squash and pumpkins on this Lancaster County ground my whole life, and in 40 years of clearing weeds by hand and not by any bottle from a store, I have lost exactly one vine to a weed I let go too long, and I lost it because I broke my own rule and stopped checking for 2 weeks in the middle of summer when I should have known better. Here is the plain reversal of the whole matter before we go one step further. You are not fighting the weed you can see standing next to your vine. You are fighting a thief you cannot see, one already 3 weeks into robbing that vine of its water and its food by the time the leaf finally shows you anything is wrong. You do not need to keep a garden the size of mine or live the way my family lives to make use of any of what follows. You only need one vine you care about and 10 honest minutes a week to look after it the right way. In this video, I will walk you through the 3 ways my family has always cleared weeds from around a vine. One for open ground, one for a weed already standing there fighting your plant for its supper, and one for gravel and cracks where nothing ought to grow at all. I will tell you plainly which of these 3 only slows a weed down for a season, and which one ends it for good, because I have no patience for a method that only looks like it worked when a man is filming it. And near the end I will tell you the one thing almost nobody checks on a vine in July, the thing that decides more than any spray or any hoe whether there is a jack-o'-lantern on your porch step in October or an empty step and a disappointed grandchild. If any of what follows is worth something to you, this is the place to press that subscribe button and the bell, because there is more of the old way still to come, and I would rather you not miss it. Before I hand you those 3 ways, understand what you are being sold as the only answer. Walk into any hardware store around here and you will find a whole shelf of bottles and jugs, $12 for the small size and $30 for the kind that promises to work the whole season through. And not one of them can tell a weed leaf from a melon leaf if the wind moves wrong, or a dandelion flower from the clover. My own bees work at the fence line. There's no money in selling a man a length of cardboard and a bucket of rainwater. There is a great deal of money in a jug he has to buy again every 6 weeks for as long as he keeps a garden. No bottle, no company on retainer, only a fork, a kettle, and a Saturday morning, and that has always been enough. Now understand what a weed is actually doing to your vine. A pumpkin or melon does not send one taproot down for its own water the way an oak tree does. Its roots spread wide and shallow in the same top few inches of soil where every weed nearby is also feeding, and a thick stand of weeds can pull as much water from that soil in a day as the vine needs to fill out a melon. A weed an inch or 2 tall barely competes at all, but let it stand 2 or 3 weeks and its roots have already spread as wide as the vine's own, feeding on the very same square foot of ground. A crowd of weeds pressed close against the crown does something else too, holding the air still and the ground damp around the stem long after a rain, which invites rot at the very point the vine can least afford it. The vine will not wilt right away, for a plant robs its own older leaves to keep new growth alive as long as it can, which is why the leaves look fine for weeks, while the fruit beneath quietly stalls and drops before it ever reaches the size of your fist. The first of the three ways is for open ground, the bare dirt around a young vine before it spreads to cover it, and for the paths between your hills where you do not want anything growing back this year. Before any of it goes down, clear what is already standing and do it the right way, for a weed pulled from the top comes back within the week, while one pulled from the root does not. My grandfather taught me to wait an hour or two after a good rain, when the ground has loosened its grip, take hold of the weed low where it meets the soil and draw it up slow until the whole root comes free in one piece. Keep a hoe well clear of the vine itself, for a blade cuts whatever it meets, root or runner alike, and cannot tell the difference between the two. A tomato or a pepper keeps its roots close in, so a hand's width of clear ground around the stem is enough. A pumpkin or a melon sends roots out wide as the season goes on, so clear a circle, reaching as far as the vine has already traveled. Once the ground is bare, save your plain cardboard, the kind from a grocery box with no glossy printing and every scrap of tape pulled off first, because tape does not break down and glossy ink is not something I care to put near food I intend to eat. I keep a stack of flattened boxes in the woodshed for exactly this purpose. For a stretch already thick with grown weeds rather than bare dirt, cut them down low first with a hoe or shears, for cardboard smothers new growth well but does little against a weed already tall and established. Lay it flat the same way a man lays shingles on a roof, each piece overlapping the next by a good 4 inches. Then weigh the edges down with a few stones or a shovel of soil, for a loose corner will sail off in the first strong wind and undo a morning of work in a minute. Wet it down well, then cover the whole of it with 3 or 4 inches of straw or dry grass clippings carrying no weed seed of their own, leaving a hand's width of bare ground open around the stem itself, for a crown held damp under packed mulch will soften and rot before the season is out. That covering does 2 honest jobs at once. It blocks the light every weed seed underneath needs to sprout, and in time, the cardboard breaks down and feeds the very soil it was smothering weeds out of. I will be honest with you about its limit. Cardboard will hold back most anything for a full season, but a weed like quack grass with an old root already running sideways under your bed will sometimes find the seam where 2 pieces meet and push up weeks later. That is not a failure of the method. That is a reason to check your seams now, and then the way you would check a roof after a storm, and lay a second piece wherever you find daylight coming through. My own grandfather did this same trick with feed sacks and old newspaper long before anybody in our community thought to give it a name, and what he learned then still works exactly the same on cardboard today. The second way is for a weed already standing there, green and growing, fighting your vine for its supper this week and not next month. For this you want 1 gallon of ordinary household vinegar, the plain 5% kind from the grocery store shelf and not the stronger horticultural vinegar sold for killing weeds, which can burn skin and eyes on contact and wants gloves and care even from an experienced man. Household vinegar costs about $3 a jug. Add 1 cup of ordinary table salt, $1 for more than enough to last the season, and 1 tablespoon of plain dish soap you most likely already keep under the sink. Each of those 3 earns its place in that jug. The vinegar is the acid that burns and dries out the leaf on contact. The salt draws the moisture out of what is left of the plant and slows how quickly new growth comes back. The dish soap breaks the surface of the mixture, so it clings to a waxy weed leaf instead of beating up and rolling off onto the dirt where it does no good. Mix the 3 together in a garden sprayer and go after the weed in the late morning on a warm, still day with the sun full on the leaves, for heat and sunlight both help the mixture do its work, and a cool, cloudy morning will leave you waiting twice as long for the same result. Check the forecast before you mix a batch too, for rain within a few hours washes the mixture off the leaf before it has finished its work, and you will have spent your morning for nothing, Keep the stream well clear of your vine and anything else you intend to eat this year. Here is my honest caveat. This spray kills what you can see within a day, the green top wilting down to nothing almost before your eyes, and for a young weed with a shallow root, that is often the end of the story. But on an old weed with a deep taproot, a dandelion or a dock plant established for a season or more, the root frequently survives untouched and sends up fresh leaves inside of 2 weeks. Do not call that a failure of the mixture. Call it a knockdown, and treat a deep taproot the way you would treat a stubborn habit, spraying it again a week apart for as many rounds as the root demands. One word of real caution, because I promise to be honest about safety too. Salt has no business going into your vegetable bed again and again, season after season, for it builds up in that soil over the years, and a buildup of salt is a poor gift to leave the dirt you mean to grow food in for years to come. Save this mixture for your gravel paths, driveway edges, and the fence line, and give the open bed the cardboard instead. Handle the jug with the same plain care you would give a bottle of bleach under your sink. Keep it off bare skin, keep it well away from your eyes, and never spray a drop on a leaf you plan to put in a pot for supper. The third way is for the gravel, driveway cracks, and stone walks where a weed has no business growing at all and nothing you care about shares the ground with it. For a crack in a walk or weeds through gravel, bring a full kettle, a quart or more depending on the size of the weed, to a full rolling boil and pour it directly onto the crown of the plant, and the heat will finish it within the day, rupturing the plant clean through in a way no cold mixture ever will. For a wider stretch of gravel or a long crack, some families keep a small propane weed torch for the same purpose, passing the flame close enough to blacken the leaf without lingering long enough to scorch the ground itself. A slow pass of 2 or 3 seconds over each weed is all you want, enough to wilt and blacken the leaf, not to set it burning, and I would have you check whether your county has called a burn ban before you light one, for a dry summer and an open flame are a poor combination, no matter how small the flame looks. Both work fast and well precisely because there is no vine root nearby to injure, which is exactly why I want you to keep both well away from your vegetable beds. Boiling water poured near a pumpkin hill kills the pumpkin as surely as the weed, and a flame is no more selective than a bottle of spray. Treat both with the same respect you would give a pot taken straight off the stove. Carry the kettle at arm's length, keep bare feet, and playing grandchildren well clear of where you are pouring, and never touch a torch to dry grass, dry mulch, or anything else near your barn that has no business catching fire on a summer afternoon. I will be honest with you the whole way through this. The bold version of what I have told you today says, pull the weeds and your vine is safe. The plain truth is a weed cleared today does not undo 3 weeks of stolen water and food, and a vine already stunted by root competition through most of June will likely not catch up to the size it might have reached by October no matter what you do differently in July. What clearing the weed honestly does is stop the theft where it stands and hand back what is left of the season for the plant to use. For most gardens, that is enough to still see real pumpkins on that porch step in October, even if a few come in smaller than they might have otherwise. That is what is honestly possible. It is not everything, but it is enough, and I would rather tell you that plainly than promise a miracle I cannot deliver. Now, the one thing I told you almost nobody checks, the thing that matters more in the end than any of the 3 ways I just gave you. Most people walk past a pumpkin hill or a melon patch once a day, if that, glance at a wall of green leaves and decide it looks fine because the part they can see from 5 feet up looks fine. The trouble is never visible from 5 feet up. It is at the crown, where stem meets soil, hidden under the very canopy you were just admiring, and you cannot see it without kneeling down and parting those leaves aside with your own hand. Once a week, the same day each week, so you do not talk yourself out of it, kneel at the base of every vine you are growing and look at that crown directly. If the soil is bare and you can see it clearly, your work that week is simply to keep it that way. If you see so much as a thin ring of green creeping in against the stem, that is the week to act, not next week, and not after it has had a chance to run a root the length of your forearm underneath that vine. This single habit, done faithfully once a week, will save you more of your harvest than any bottle on that shelf, and it costs nothing beyond the willingness to get your knees a little dirty on a Tuesday evening. I keep the fuller version of this habit, along with a good many other old ways, written down in a book my wife and I put together called the Amish Home Savings Manual. And if you want the whole of it in one place, that is where it lives. I will not mention it again tonight. Tonight, before you do one more thing, walk out to wherever you are growing a vine and kneel down at the base of it exactly the way I described. Tomorrow morning, gather your cardboard and start laying it along any open ground still bare around those hills. By this coming weekend, mix your first jug of vinegar, salt, and soap, and keep it ready by the door for the next weed that shows itself standing green where it has no business standing. That is the whole plan, and no step in it costs more than a few dollars or asks you to wait on anybody else. Tell me in the comments which vine in your garden looks strongest to you right now without going out to check it first. Now go look at the actual crown of that plant before you answer me. Measure with your eye how close the nearest weed is standing to it. Most people who answer this find the distance closer than they believed, and that gap, however small it looks, is exactly where a harvest gets lost quietly between now and October if nobody closes it. I read every single answer you leave me, and I will tell you plainly if what you describe sounds like trouble. Next time, once the thief is cleared out and no longer robbing your vine of its water, I want to show you what to feed that plant to make up some of what it lost. 1 bucket, 4 plain things most of you already have or can find for a few dollars, the same bucket my own grandfather mixed the week after we cleared quackgrass from our melon patch the summer I turned 12. Subscribe so that video finds you when it comes, because a cleared vine that goes unfed is only half the job finished. Stay watchful, stay patient, and remember, the people who built this country with their own 2 hands knew to look under the leaf before they ever trusted what was standing on top of it, and that is a habit worth remembering long after the reason for learning it has been forgotten.